Brothers and sisters, listen to me closely. Life is not as random as the world would have you believe. There is a sovereign hand guiding, shaping, and directing every step, every decision, every moment. If you notice these signs, understand that something much greater than yourself is at work. God is leading, directing, and calling you. First, do you sense a growing discontent within you, a deep, persistent longing for something more than the empty distractions of this world? This is not merely a passing feeling. It is the stirring of the soul, a whisper that calls you to rise above the temporary and seek the eternal. When the things of this world no longer satisfy, you are being prepared for something greater. Second, are you encountering trials and struggles that seem beyond your ability to bear? It's in these moments, when everything seems to be crashing around you, that God is molding you. The refiner's fire burns away impurities, shaping you into the person He desires you to be. Don't despair in these moments of pain. Don't complain. Know that through your weakness, His strength will be made perfect. Third, do you notice an increase in your desire to know truth? Do you hunger for wisdom, for understanding, for clarity about life, and more importantly, about your purpose? This is not a natural thirst. This is a divine thirst, a hunger placed within you by a hand much greater than yours. Do not quench it with the shallow philosophies of man. Seek truth. Seek it with all your heart. Fourth, are you beginning to see things clearly? Your eyes are opening, not just to the world around you, but to the reality of eternity. You are beginning to understand that life is not about what you can accumulate or achieve, but about the impact you have on those around you. When your priorities start shifting from the temporary to the eternal, understand that the direction of your life is being redirected. Fifth, are you finding that your relationships are changing? As you walk deeper into what you are being called to, people will come into your life and others will walk away. This is no accident. You are being surrounded by those who will encourage you toward your true purpose. And those who hinder that purpose will slowly drift away. It is God's work, orchestrating the people in your life to move you closer to His will. Sixth, do you experience a deep sense of peace and conviction in your heart about decisions that once seemed uncertain? When you are being directed, the confusion and uncertainty start to fade. Peace will rise up within you as you align yourself with the will of God. That peace that surpasses all understanding is a sign, a confirmation that your steps are being ordered. Seventh, do you experience a growing burden for others? When the call of God is upon your life, it is never for your own glory or comfort. The more you align yourself with His will, the more your heart will break for the broken, the lost, the hurting. Your life will no longer be about you. It will be about bringing glory to Him by serving and loving others. If you notice these 7 signs, understand that you are not in control. You never were. But He, the one who spoke the world into existence, is leading you. You are being directed. Walk in His ways, listen to His voice, and trust His timing. The steps of a righteous man are ordered. Keep walking forward with eyes fixed on the eternal, knowing that you are not alone. There is a deep, often unspoken longing that many people experience, this sense that life is not as it should be, that something is missing, or that there's more to life than the fleeting pleasures and distractions we encounter. This is not a mere passing feeling. It is a profound stirring of the heart and soul, one that cannot be ignored if you are truly attentive to it. This discontent, this inner dissatisfaction, is not a problem to be solved or something that can be fulfilled with the material or the superficial. It is not a condition to be avoided, but rather an invitation, a call from a higher source, a divine hand that is beckoning you to something greater, to something more significant than anything the world could offer. When this discontent first begins to stir within you, it often goes unnoticed or is mistaken for restlessness, boredom, or dissatisfaction with circumstances. People tend to try to fill this void with things, money, possessions, success, relationships, or status, thinking that if they can just achieve enough, acquire enough, or prove enough, then the restlessness will go away. But the truth is, This inner longing is not a void that can be filled by the world's offerings. The more you try to fill it, the more you realize that the satisfaction is always fleeting, and the desire always returns. And with every passing moment, you feel a growing emptiness, a gnawing sensation that something is still missing, no matter how much you achieve or acquire. This yearning is not random, it is not a coincidence. It is a divine discontent that arises from the Creator, a longing to draw you nearer to His purposes and His plans for your life. It is a reminder that you were not made for this world alone. You were made for something far greater, something that extends beyond the boundaries of time and the limitations of earthly desires. This dissatisfaction is not a curse. It is a blessing in disguise, a tool that God uses to break through the noise of the world and get your attention. At times, this feeling of discontent will become so overwhelming that it may lead you to question everything you've known, everything you've built your life around. You may feel like a stranger in your own life, wondering where the joy, the peace, and the fulfillment have gone. But it is in these very moments that you are being invited to step out of the mundane and into something eternal. The dissatisfaction you experience is a signal that you are being directed. It is God's way of saying, you were meant for more, you are meant to be more. This stirring within you is not to be ignored or pushed aside. It is not a sign of weakness or instability. It is a call to rise above the trivial things that the world offers and to start seeking something of substance. The moment you begin to listen to that inner stirring, you will start to notice that your desires begin to change. Your heart will begin to shift from a focus on temporary satisfaction to a longing for purpose and meaning. No longer will you find joy in the fleeting pleasures of life. Instead, you will begin to hunger for deeper understanding, for truth, for a life that is rich with eternal value. This desire for something more is not about selfish ambition or personal gain. It is a call to recognize your higher purpose in the grand scheme of God's plan. As you give in to this longing, you may find that the things you once held dear start to lose their appeal. The world's distractions begin to fade into the background, and you become increasingly aware of the emptiness of everything that once held your attention. The things you thought would fulfill you success, relationships, material gain, no longer satisfy. They never truly did. They were simply distractions, temporary diversions to keep you from realizing that the only true satisfaction can be found in aligning your life with the purpose God has designed for you. It is not easy to accept this stirring, this divine discontent. It's uncomfortable. It calls you to step out of your comfort zone, to let go of the things that once defined you, and to step into the unknown. But understand that this discomfort is not a curse. It is a gift. It is an invitation to find something far greater than what the world can offer. And though the path may not be easy, though the journey may be filled with uncertainty and difficulty, the destination, the life of fulfillment, purpose, and peace will far exceed anything you could ever have imagined. So, embrace the stirring, embrace the longing, recognize it for what it is, a divine invitation to draw closer to the purpose for which you were created. Don't fight against it or try to fill it with the shallow things of this world. Instead, surrender to it, let it lead you to something greater, let it guide you toward a life that transcends the temporary and the superficial and moves you toward the eternal, toward a life filled with purpose and true fulfillment. This discontent, this longing, it is not something to be avoided. It is something to be embraced, for it is the very thing that will lead you to a life of significance and to the fulfillment of God's purpose in your life. There are moments in life when we find ourselves facing trials, struggles, and difficulties that seem overwhelming. These moments can often feel like insurmountable obstacles, and the natural response is to either fight against them or seek a way to escape them. We want things to be easy, comfortable, and without challenge, but the truth is, the very trials that we try so hard to avoid or escape are often the ones that shape us most deeply. They are not random. They are not without purpose. They are tools that God uses to refine us, to transform us, and to mold us into the person He created us to be. The trials in our lives are not there to break us, although they may sometimes feel like they will. They are not there to punish us or to show us how weak we are. Rather, they are the means by which God works out His divine purposes in us. Through these trials, He is refining our character, strengthening our faith, and teaching us how to depend on Him more fully. When everything seems to be falling apart, it is often in those very moments that God is doing His deepest work in our hearts. There's a profound truth that needs to be recognized here. The refiner's fire is not designed to destroy us, but to purify us. Just as gold is refined by fire, so too are we refined by the trials and hardships we face. The fire burns away the impurities in our hearts, our selfish desires, our pride, our fears, so that what remains is something far more precious, far more valuable. It is in the furnace of affliction that we are shaped into vessels that can carry the weight of God's glory, that can fulfill His purposes in the world. But here's the thing, we don't always recognize the purpose of our trials when we're in the middle of them. In the midst of the storm, it's hard to see anything but the wind and the waves crashing around us. We want immediate relief. We want the pain to stop. We want to know why this is happening to us. But as long as we focus on the discomfort and the difficulty, we miss the opportunity to grow through it. God doesn't waste our pain. He doesn't waste our struggles. Every trial, no matter how small or large, has a purpose. It's in the midst of those trials that we learn to trust Him more fully, to rely on His strength when we are weak, and to find a peace that surpasses all understanding. When we find ourselves in these moments of trial, we are being invited to experience God in a deeper, more intimate way. It's easy to rely on God when everything is going well, when life is comfortable and predictable, but it's in the struggles that we truly begin to see God for who He is. In the moments of weakness, we experience His strength. In the moments of uncertainty, we experience His peace. In the moments of fear, we experience His courage. Trials, though difficult, are the means through which God reveals more of Himself to us. They push us to depend on Him in ways that comfort and success never could. It's important to understand, however, that this refining process isn't always immediate. There will be times when we don't feel the relief we expect, when we don't see the results of our growth as quickly as we hope. The refining process takes time. The gold doesn't appear pure the moment it's placed in the fire. It must be heated, melted, and refined over and over again before it is ready. So too, God's work in our hearts takes time. He is not in a hurry. He knows exactly what we need and when we need it. Though we may not always see it, He is working in the background, shaping us, molding us, preparing us for the future He has planned for us. And this leads to the deeper truth that we need to grasp. The struggles we face are not just about us. God is not refining us for our own benefit alone. He is preparing us to serve others, to bear witness to His glory, and to be a light in the world. When we endure hardships with faith, when we walk through trials with a heart that trusts in God's goodness and sovereignty, we are showing the world that there is something greater than our circumstances. We are demonstrating that our hope is not in the things of this world, but in the unshakable promises of God. Through our struggles, we become a testimony of God's faithfulness, of His ability to sustain us, even in the hardest of times. There is power in endurance. There is strength in perseverance. And as we endure, we become more and more like the person God intended us to be. When we allow Him to refine us through the trials, we are shaped into individuals who can handle the weight of His calling on our lives. The trials that seem so difficult now will, in time, be seen as necessary steps in the process of our spiritual growth, leading us to a place where we can carry out the purposes God has for us with strength, wisdom, and grace. So, do not fear the trials. Do not shrink back from the struggle. Understand that through it, God is doing a mighty work in your life. Trust Him in the process, and know that his refining fire is making you into something beautiful, something worthy of his calling. As we move through life, we often find ourselves seeking answers to the many questions that arise within our hearts. We long for wisdom, for clarity, for understanding of the world around us and our place in it. In times of confusion, we may feel lost, wondering what direction we should take, what decisions we should make, and how we can make sense of the complexity of life. Yet, it is in these very moments that God provides us with a deep and insatiable hunger for truth, a desire to know His will, and to understand the meaning of our existence. This is not merely a desire for intellectual knowledge, it is a spiritual hunger that points us to something far greater than ourselves. The growing thirst for truth that you feel within your heart is not a coincidence. It is a divine work in you. The more you seek to understand, the more you realize that this hunger cannot be satisfied with worldly wisdom or the shallow philosophies of man. The wisdom of the world is fleeting, temporary, and ultimately empty. But the wisdom that comes from God is eternal. It is not based on human understanding, but is rooted in the very nature of who He is. The desire to know truth, to understand the deeper realities of life, is not a natural thirst. It is a divine thirst, a longing that God places within our hearts to lead us toward His truth. As you begin to seek that truth, you will find that it becomes more and more satisfying. The more you hunger for wisdom, the more you are drawn into a deeper relationship with God, the one who is the source of all truth. The world may offer you countless answers, but none of them can satisfy the deep longing in your soul. Only the truth that comes from God can fill that emptiness. Only His truth can provide the clarity and understanding you seek. This thirst for truth is not just about gaining knowledge, but about gaining understanding of who God is, who you are in Him, and how you are to live in this world. As you draw closer to Him, your heart will begin to align with His, and you will find yourself desiring the things He desires and rejecting the things He rejects. This is the transformative power of truth. It doesn't just inform your mind, it transforms your heart, your desires, and your life. The desire for truth is a sign that God is working in you, directing your life toward His purpose. It is an indication that He is drawing you into a deeper understanding of His will for your life and calling you to live according to His truth. As you seek that truth, do not be discouraged when you do not have all the answers right away. Understand that the journey of seeking truth is lifelong. But with every step you take, with every piece of wisdom you gain, you are being led closer to the heart of God, where true peace, purpose, and fulfillment are found. There is a pivotal moment in every believer's journey when they begin to see life through a different lens. The things that once seemed important, the pursuits, the goals, the desires of the world, begin to fade and a new perspective starts to take root. The things that once consumed your attention begin to lose their appeal. You no longer find satisfaction in the endless chase for success, pleasure, or recognition. Instead, your heart begins to yearn for something deeper, something more eternal. The shift may come gradually, but when it does, it's a profound transformation, one that cannot be easily reversed. This is the moment when you realize that the focus of your life is no longer on the temporary or the fleeting, but on the eternal. It's when you begin to understand that life is about more than what you can accumulate or achieve. When this shift begins to happen, it's as though the scales fall from your eyes. You begin to see clearly what truly matters, what is truly important. The trivial concerns of this world, wealth, status, comfort, start to lose their hold on your heart. The pursuit of those things no longer drives you. The desire to make a name for yourself, to climb the ladder of success, or to live in luxury no longer holds the same allure it once did. Instead, you begin to see life as it truly is, a fleeting moment in the span of eternity. You start to recognize that everything you do here on earth has lasting implications, not only for your own life but for those around you. This change in perspective comes with a deeper understanding of your true purpose. The world tells you that success is measured by what you own, how much you achieve, or how many people know your name. But when your perspective shifts to the eternal, you begin to understand that success is not about personal gain or recognition. True success is found in fulfilling the calling that God has placed on your life, a calling that goes far beyond material achievements. It is found in living a life that reflects His character and purpose. As you begin to see things through this lens, you realize that your life is not about you. It is about glorifying God and serving others. Your desires change from seeking comfort and security to seeking to live according to His will, to seek His kingdom above all else. This new perspective transforms the way you interact with the world. You no longer measure your worth by the standards of the world. You are no longer driven by the desire for success or approval from others. Instead, your life becomes marked by a desire to live for something greater than yourself, something that will endure long after you are gone. This shift in perspective is a powerful sign that God is directing your life. When your heart begins to desire eternal things rather than fleeting things, you can be certain that God is leading you. He is aligning your heart with His eternal purposes, preparing you to make a lasting impact in this world. As you begin to see life with this new clarity, you will notice that your priorities start to shift. The things that once consumed your time and energy begin to lose their significance. Relationships that once felt shallow and unimportant begin to take on deeper meaning. You start to see the eternal value in loving and serving others, in building relationships that reflect Christ's love and grace. Your focus shifts from self-centeredness to others-centeredness. You begin to see the world not as something to be conquered, but as a place to bring hope, healing, and love. This shift in priorities is not something you can manufacture on your own. It is a work of God in your life, one that He accomplishes as He guides you and directs your steps. The transformation that comes with this shift in perspective is not always easy. The world's values are constantly pulling at you, trying to convince you that success is measured by what you possess, what you achieve, or how much you are admired. But when God begins to change your heart, you will find that these worldly values no longer satisfy. The more you walk in His ways, the more you realize that the things the world holds dear are temporary and fleeting. As your heart aligns with His, you will find yourself living with a deeper sense of purpose, peace, and fulfillment. You will begin to experience the joy that comes from knowing that your life is aligned with the eternal purposes of God. When this shift takes place, it's a powerful sign that God is directing your life. He is changing your heart, transforming your desires, and aligning your priorities with His. And as you walk this path, you will begin to experience a peace that comes from knowing that you are living for something greater than yourself, something that will endure forever. In the journey of life, one of the most significant changes we can experience is the growing conviction in our hearts about the decisions we make. There was a time when we might have been uncertain, unsure of what to do or where to turn. The world offers countless options, and the decisions we face often seem overwhelming. But as God begins to direct our lives, we begin to sense an increasing clarity and confidence in our choices. This is not a result of our own wisdom or intellect, but a work of the Holy Spirit in our hearts. When God is leading us, He grants us the peace that surpasses all understanding, and with that peace comes a growing conviction that we are walking in the right direction. This conviction is not something we can manufacture. It is not based on human reasoning or personal ambition. It is a deep inner assurance that comes from the Holy Spirit, confirming in our hearts that we are making the right choices in line with God's will. We begin to experience a sense of calm and certainty, even when the path ahead is unclear. We may not know every detail of what lies ahead, but we know that God is guiding us. We begin to recognize that the decisions we make are not just random choices, but part of a larger plan that God has for our lives. This growing conviction is a powerful sign that God is at work in us, directing our steps and confirming His will in our hearts. The more we yield to God's guidance, the more we experience this peace and conviction. Our hearts become aligned with His purposes, and our decisions begin to reflect that alignment. We no longer have to second guess ourselves or wonder if we are making the right choices. We trust that God is leading us, and we are confident that He will continue to direct our paths. This growing conviction is not a guarantee that the road will always be easy. There will still be moments of doubt, confusion, and challenge. But even in those moments, we will have the deep assurance that God is with us, guiding us, and working all things together for our good and His glory. When God is directing our lives, this peace and conviction become a constant companion. It is a sign that we are walking in His will, and it serves as a guide to help us navigate the challenges and uncertainties of life. This growing sense of assurance is a confirmation that we are not alone, that God is with us every step of the way. And as we continue to follow His lead, we will experience the deep joy and fulfillment that comes from living in alignment with His will. There is a profound truth in the realization that as we grow in our relationship with God, we begin to feel an increasing burden for others. This is not a burden of obligation or guilt, but one that arises naturally from a heart that has been transformed by His love. As we draw closer to God and align ourselves with His purposes, our hearts begin to break for the things that break His heart. We begin to feel compassion for the lost, the broken, and the hurting. We become more aware of the suffering in the world and our responsibility to make a difference. This burden for others is not something that comes from within ourselves, but is a result of God's work in our lives. As God directs our lives, He opens our eyes to the needs of those around us. We begin to see people not just as individuals, but as souls in need of the same grace and mercy that we have received. This growing burden for others is a sign that God is directing us toward His mission in the world. He is calling us to step out of our comfort zones, to love and serve others, and to make a lasting impact in their lives. As we respond to this call, we become agents of change in the world, shining the light of Christ in the darkness. This burden for others leads us to live a life of purpose and significance. It shifts our focus from ourselves to those around us, and it compels us to take action. We are no longer content to live for ourselves, but are driven by a desire to see others experience the love and hope that we have found in Christ. This is a clear sign that God is directing our lives, moving us from selfishness to selflessness, from comfort to service, and from indifference to compassion. As we follow His lead, we become instruments of His grace, bringing hope to the hopeless and light to those in darkness. As you continue on the path that God has set before you, one of the most significant signs that He is directing your life is the increasing sense of peace and assurance that you begin to experience. There's a moment when, amid all the noise and confusion of the world, you realize that you are no longer overwhelmed by the weight of decisions or the pressure of circumstances. You no longer feel like you are simply drifting, tossed about by the waves of life. Instead, there is a quiet confidence that begins to settle in your heart, a deep peace that transcends your understanding of the situation. This peace is not based on the absence of challenges, but on the presence of God's guiding hand in your life. It's a peace that comes from knowing that, no matter how difficult or uncertain the road ahead may seem, you are not walking it alone. God is with you every step of the way. This peace is not something you can manufacture on your own. It's a gift, a sign of God's presence and His sovereignty over every aspect of your life. When God is directing your life, He gives you peace that allows you to rest in Him, to trust that He has a plan for you that is greater than anything you could imagine. In moments of uncertainty, when you don't know what to do or where to go, this peace anchors your soul. It settles your heart in the knowledge that God is in control. It's the kind of peace that doesn't make sense to the world, a peace that goes beyond circumstances and understanding. It is only found in the presence of the one who knows the end from the beginning, and it becomes a powerful sign that God is actively leading and guiding your life. This peace that God gives doesn't mean the absence of struggle or difficulty. On the contrary, it often appears most clearly in the midst of trials. In fact, the more deeply you are aligned with God's direction for your life, the more you will experience peace in the midst of turmoil. The world might look at your situation and question how you can have peace given the circumstances, but when you know that you are walking in God's will and that He is faithfully guiding you, there is a calm assurance that nothing in this world can take away. This peace, in many ways, becomes a testament to those around you. It shows them that, even in the face of difficulty, there is a greater peace available to those who trust in God, and that peace becomes an undeniable sign of God's presence in your life. Another critical sign that God is directing your life is the transformation in your desires and actions. Over time, you begin to notice a shift in what you want and what you pursue. Things that once held your attention, material possessions, achievements, or fleeting pleasures, begin to lose their appeal. Your desires start to align with the things that matter most in God's eyes: love, compassion, justice, humility, and integrity. This is not something you achieve through effort alone, but is a work that God does in you, changing your heart from the inside out. As God directs your life, He shapes your desires to reflect His heart, leading you to pursue things that have eternal value. This transformation is not instantaneous, and it may not always be easy. There will be moments of tension, times when your old desires try to creep back into your life, moments when you long for the things you once thought were so important. But as you continue to walk with God, you will find that your desires begin to shift more and more in alignment with His will. You begin to hunger and thirst for righteousness, for the advancement of His kingdom, and for the opportunity to serve others. Your priorities change, and you start to care less about what the world values and more about what God values. You become less concerned with building your own reputation and more concerned with building God's kingdom on earth. This transformation of desires is one of the clearest indications that God is leading your life. It is evidence that His Spirit is at work in you, shaping you into the person He created you to be. As your desires change, your actions begin to follow suit. You no longer act out of selfish ambition or for personal gain. Instead, you begin to serve others, love sacrificially, and seek to make a difference in the world around you. The choices you make, the way you spend your time, the way you interact with others, all of these things begin to reflect the transformation that God is bringing about in your heart. And this transformation becomes a living testimony to the work of God in your life. As you grow in your relationship with God and allow Him to guide your life, you will begin to notice that your relationships also start to change. God is a relational God, and as He directs your life, He leads you into deeper, more meaningful relationships with others. One of the signs that God is directing your life is the growing sense of connection and purpose in your relationships. You begin to see people not just as individuals, but as souls created in the image of God, each with their own value and worth. You begin to approach relationships with a heart of service, seeking to build others up rather than seeking personal gain or approval. In this process, you may also begin to experience a growing sense of compassion and empathy for others. As your heart aligns more closely with God's, you begin to feel His love for others in a deeper, more tangible way. You begin to care for the needs of others, not just those who are close to you, but even those who may be strangers or people you would not have cared for in the past. Your relationships are no longer centered around what you can get from others, but on what you can give. You seek to encourage, uplift, and serve those around you in a way that reflects the love of Christ. This transformation in your relationships is a powerful sign that God is directing your life. It shows that His love is at work within you, moving you to extend grace, mercy, and kindness to those around you. As God leads you, He calls you to be a light in the lives of others. to reflect His love in your interactions, and to build relationships that are rooted in His truth. These transformed relationships will not only bring you closer to others, but they will also draw others closer to God. Through your love and service, you will become a witness to the power of God's direction in your life, and the impact you make will ripple out, touching the lives of those you encounter. As God directs your life, He also leads you to a place where you begin to feel more and more a sense of purpose in everything you do. Life no longer feels aimless or empty. You begin to understand that every moment, every decision, every action has meaning and purpose in the grand scheme of God's plan. This sense of purpose brings fulfillment in ways that achievements, possessions, or accolades never could. The more you live in alignment with God's will, the more you experience a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that your life is part of something much greater than yourself. Your purpose becomes clear as you begin to see that everything you do, whether it's in your work, your family, your friendships, or your community, can be an expression of God's love and grace. No task is too small or insignificant. Every part of your life holds value because it is an opportunity to live out your calling, to reflect God's glory, and to impact the world around you. As you walk in this understanding, you find yourself becoming more and more at peace with who you are and the life that you are living. This is a powerful indication that God is directing your life. He is giving you a clear sense of purpose, and in doing so, He is guiding you to live a life that is truly significant. As you walk through life, one of the undeniable signs that God is actively guiding your steps is the growing sense of spiritual awareness and conviction that begins to settle in your heart. In the beginning, you may have been uncertain about your faith, your purpose, and the deeper aspects of life. The weight of the world may have caused you to question where you fit in, what you were meant to do, or what kind of life you should lead. But as you continue to seek God, you begin to notice a shift. Things you once took for granted, your habits, your priorities, even your thought life, start to change. The Holy Spirit begins to convict your heart in ways that you never imagined. The small, seemingly insignificant decisions you make every day take on greater meaning. You become more aware of the choices you're making, and you develop a deeper understanding of how those choices reflect your heart's desire to align with God's will. This growing spiritual awareness isn't something you can generate on your own. It's a divine work that God does within you. As He directs your life, He makes you more attuned to His voice and more sensitive to the things that grieve Him. There is an increasing awareness of the holiness of God and the weight of His presence. You start to understand that living in a way that pleases God is not a matter of adhering to rules, but of cultivating a heart that is fully surrendered to His will. Your heart becomes more attuned to the things of the Spirit, and you begin to discern His leading in a clearer way. This spiritual awareness also brings with it a deeper conviction about sin. You begin to feel the weight of sin more acutely, not as a burden to be avoided or dismissed, but as a serious violation of God's holiness. You recognize that sin is not just a list of behaviors or actions that are wrong, but a violation of relationship with God. The more you are guided by God's Spirit, the more you see the consequences of sin in your life and in the world around you. This growing awareness of sin doesn't cause you to despair. Rather, it drives you to the cross, where you find grace, forgiveness, and the power to overcome. It pushes you to live in a way that honors God, to continually seek His presence, and to surrender your heart to His transforming power. As God directs your life, you also begin to develop a deeper love for His Word. The Scriptures, once perhaps dry or irrelevant, begin to come alive in a new way. You start to see them not just as ancient texts, but as the very words of God that speak directly to your life today. You begin to hunger and thirst for the truth that is contained within those pages. The Word of God becomes your guide, your refuge, and your source of wisdom. As God leads you, you begin to desire to know His Word more deeply, to understand His heart, and to apply His truth to every area of your life. This deepening love for the scriptures is a clear sign that God is directing your life. It shows that His Spirit is at work within you, guiding you into all truth. Another powerful sign that God is directing your life is the increasing ability to discern His voice and leading, even in the midst of life's complexities and uncertainties. There are times when the road ahead is not clear, when you face difficult choices and conflicting desires. In these moments, it's easy to become overwhelmed by the uncertainty, wondering if you're making the right decision. But as you continue to walk in obedience to God and grow in your relationship with Him, you begin to develop a sharper sense of discernment. God, through His Spirit, leads you gently, showing you the way forward. Sometimes it's through a quiet conviction in your heart, sometimes through wise counsel from others, and other times through circumstances that clearly reveal His hand. This discernment doesn't come from your own understanding or intellect. It is a gift that God provides as you walk in His will. It's a deep inner knowing that comes when your heart is aligned with His. As you submit to His direction, you begin to trust Him more fully and rely less on your own understanding. Even when things don't make sense, you learn to trust that God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating every detail of your life according to His perfect plan. And in those moments of uncertainty, when you feel lost or unsure, the peace of knowing that God is guiding you fills you with confidence. This growing ability to discern His will is a clear sign that God is directing your life and that His Spirit is at work within you. Along with a growing spiritual awareness and the ability to discern God's voice, you also begin to experience a deeper sense of joy and fulfillment as you align yourself with God's purposes. There's a peace that comes from walking in obedience to His will, a satisfaction that cannot be found in anything the world offers. As you step into the life that God is calling you to, you begin to experience the deep joy of fulfilling your purpose. The things that once seemed important, the accolades, the possessions, the approval of others, begin to fade in comparison to the joy that comes from serving God and others. This joy is not based on external circumstances, but is rooted in the internal satisfaction that comes from living a life that pleases God. You begin to see that true fulfillment doesn't come from what you do or what you have, but from who you are in Christ and how you live out His purposes in the world. This joy is a sign that God is directing your life because it reveals that your heart is aligned with His. It shows that you are no longer living for your own glory or comfort, but for His. It's a joy that transcends temporary happiness and provides an unshakable foundation even in the midst of challenges. When God is directing your life, you begin to experience the fullness of joy that comes from living in His will. And this joy spills over into every area of your life, your relationships, your work, your service to others. It is the joy of knowing that you are doing what God has called you to do, and that is enough. Finally, one of the clearest signs that God is directing your life is the growing desire to serve others and live selflessly. As God shapes your heart, He begins to place others at the center of your attention. You begin to see people not just as individuals with their own needs and desires, but as souls in need of love, compassion, and grace. The more you understand God's heart for the lost, the broken, and the hurting, the more you are compelled to step out of your own comfort zone and serve others. This desire to serve is not a forced obligation, but a natural outpouring of the love that God has poured into your heart. The more you serve others, the more you experience the joy and fulfillment that comes from following God's example. Jesus came to serve, not to be served, and as you grow in your relationship with Him, you begin to take on the same mindset. Serving others becomes a way of life, not just an occasional act. You begin to look for opportunities to meet the needs of those around you, whether it's through acts of kindness, offering support, or sharing the message of God's love. This desire to serve is not something that you generate through your own willpower. It is the work of the Holy Spirit in your heart, drawing you to reflect the heart of God in all that you do. As you serve, you begin to see the world through God's eyes and recognize the infinite value of each individual. This desire to serve others is a powerful sign that God is directing your life, leading you to fulfill His purpose in the world. The more you yield to His guidance, the more you begin to understand that your life is not your own. It's a life that has been bought with a price, and it is meant to be lived for the glory of God and the good of others. When God is directing your life, you will find that your priorities shift, your desires change, and your joy increases as you walk in obedience to His calling. In this journey of life, as God directs your steps, you will begin to notice His hand in ways both profound and subtle. Your desires will shift, your heart will change, and your focus will turn from the fleeting to the eternal. It's not about living for your own glory or chasing after what the world holds dear. It's about walking in alignment with the purposes of God, knowing that His plan is far greater than anything you could ever imagine. With each step, you will experience His peace, His conviction, and His joy in deeper ways, and the more you follow His lead, the more you will see His presence manifest in your life. As you continue to seek Him, you will become more aware of His Spirit guiding you, transforming your desires, shaping your heart, and leading you toward a life of purpose and fulfillment. The signs of His direction will become unmistakable, and the joy that comes from living a life devoted to His will overflow in every area of your existence. Remember, it is not by your own strength or wisdom that you will navigate this journey, but by the grace and power of the One who holds all things together. Trust Him, surrender to His lead, and watch as He faithfully directs your path. Ultimately, the direction God is leading you toward is not just about your individual journey. It's about His kingdom, His glory, and His eternal purposes. You are part of a greater story, one that will outlast the temporal and echo into eternity. When God is directing your life, you will find that the path ahead is full of meaning, purpose, and peace, and you will discover that nothing in this world compares to the joy of walking in His will. Let His guidance shape your life, and you will find the fulfillment and peace that only He can provide. The journey may not always be easy, but it will always be worth it.